Do you know, if there's one thing I've loved in fashion history throughout the eras, is the one-sided look. And there's many of those different styles in all sorts of ways and changes, and it's fascinating to hear how they all came about. And I'd like to start with my favourite, particularly on men, which is the one-sided earring. And for some unknown reason, particularly in men, it was known that left is right and right is wrong. But where did all this originate from? So back in 14th century Russia, the Cossacks used to wear an earring in the right ear to denote that they had a family to feed and that they shouldn't fight. In medieval northern Italy, it was a sign of servitude. You were made to have your one ear pierced to show that you were a servant. And way back then in the Jewish community, it was a mark of a prostitute. Like most fashions in history, it starts off with the peasants and the workers, and then it just takes off as a fashion. What about this suave fashion in Elizabethan times? It was called the half cape or the capelet. So this originally happened because you needed to keep your prominent hand free to access your sword as quickly as possible. But then, like any practicality, it turned into a cool fashion. In the late 1300s, early 1400s, look at this suave man's hat that's sitting on top of his head with a long piece down the side called a cornet. This was said to have originated from, you see these hoods here? Well, in summer they would get really hot and sweaty around the neck, so they would have to push them up and rest them on top of their heads when working and tilling in the field. The hat that became known as the chaperon, with either a long cornet or liripipe or this fancy coxcomb type one-sided look. And the word coxcomb obviously comes from the top of a cockerel, the fancy piece. What about the one-sided cocked hat? Where did that originate from? Well, this might be true or not, but I've tried to do research on this and just have actually found out that way back in ancient Greece, freed slaves were given one of these, a Frisian cap that was worn with pride because you were now free. This used to have an excess on the top that used to flop over either forward or to the side, and of course then became quite a cool look. And in the 1600s, the Baroque period, this one-sided sash that either goes across your chest or round your waist and hung grandly down the side. Started off on the battlefield, military wear, because obviously you needed to know who you were fighting and who was your enemy. So a coloured sash sorted that out. But there is this one-sided look in the Tudor period that I really can't find out in all my research how it came about. Now this is Jane Seymour, and that was Catherine of Aragon that first bought this box gable hood to the court in England when she married Henry VIII. And Anne Boleyn had brought this rounded French hood with her from the French court. But Jane Seymour wanted to ban the court from having anything to do with Anne Boleyn, and nobody was allowed to wear the rounded French hood anymore. But I think that she wanted to put her own mark on the box gable hood that came back. So started to pin one of these lappets up that was at the back of the hood, two angled lappets. She started to pin one up on the side, and I can find no reason for it other than it was probably a fashion statement of her putting her mark on her own hood. Well, whatever the reason and for why ever it was done, there were lots of notary ladies of high esteem that used to sit and have their portrait painted with this one-sided lappet look. Fabulous! Do hope you've enjoyed another fashion story. If you have, join me again next time. Bye!